Hi, I'm Naomi, and if you've ever trusted the wrong people just because they share your blood, then you already know how this begins. My story doesn't start with a scream or a betrayal you can hear. It starts in a quiet bank office, beige walls, a polite smile from a woman behind glass. "Could I speak to someone about my down payment withdrawal?" I said. I had a folder in my hand, neatly printed documents, Idaho, everything ready. This was supposed to be the day I locked in the house I'd saved for across 6 years, the place I thought I'd bring my dog, my plants, maybe one day a child. But the teller's smile faded. She typed something into the computer, then paused. "There seems to have been a withdrawal made last Friday," she said, her voice switching to that neutral tone that tells you things are about to go very, very wrong. I leaned in. "No, that's not possible." She turned the monitor toward me. $71,842.26, gone. Transferred to a third-party account linked to an auto dealership. "Are you sure you didn't approve this?" she asked. No, I didn't approve it. I didn't even know it existed. I left the bank with shaking hands and a headache building behind my eyes. In the parking lot, I stared at the sky like it might cough up answers. But all I got was a breeze and a text from my mom. "Hope you're not mad. We'll explain everything. Love you." That's when I knew. I called her. I didn't yell. I didn't even speak right away. She answered with a breathy, "Naomi," like she was surprised I had the nerve to call. "What happened to my house fund?" I asked. A pause. "It was just sitting there, sweetie, and your sister had an urgent situation. You know how important her job is now." Her job? Her job needed 71 grand? She needed a car, for the new position. You don't understand how competitive it is in her industry, and the dealership said the price wouldn't last. It was a time-sensitive deal. A time-sensitive deal, like I hadn't worked double shifts for years, like I hadn't skipped holidays and birthdays and vacations to build that fund. "You didn't even ask me," I said. Her voice hardened just slightly. "You weren't using it, and you're still young. You'll have time to save again. This was a family decision." Family decision. The phrase sat in my mouth like something spoiled. "Was Dad in on this?" I asked. Another pause, then. He signed the form. We thought it'd be easier that way. Less to explain. They forged my signature. I didn't say it out loud yet. I couldn't. But I could already feel something twisting inside me. Not just anger. Something colder. Quieter. Like a string had snapped, and I wasn't going to retie it. When I pulled into their driveway an hour later, my sister's new Audi was parked right out front. Red, shiny, not even a temporary plate yet. I walked into the house without knocking. "Naomi," my dad said from the couch, looking up like I'd just come home for Thanksgiving. "You hungry? We're ordering Thai." I stared at him. "You signed away my future for Thai?" He sighed. "Don't be dramatic. It's not gone. It's just diverted." "Diverted?" My sister came down the stairs then, in heels holding a yoga mat. "Oh my God, are we doing this now?" she said. "Because I literally cannot fight before a stretch class." I didn't look at her. "You knew it was my money." She laughed, breezy as ever. "And what were you going to do? Sit on it for 5 more years while you overthink the color of your kitchen backsplash?" I turned to my parents. "I want the full documentation, every form, every signature, now." Mom folded her arms. "You're not going to sue your own family." I said nothing, because she was wrong. I wasn't going to sue my family. I was going to sue 3 people who had just proven they weren't mine anymore. Ever been told it's just money by someone who didn't earn it? I didn't sleep that night. I lay in bed, fully dressed, staring at the ceiling with my hands crossed over my stomach like I was bracing for an earthquake. I kept replaying the phrase my mother had used, a family decision. Like I was just another line item on their shared agenda. Not a daughter, not even a person, just leverage. Around 3:12 a.m., I opened my laptop and logged into my credit report account. The last time I'd checked it was 6 months ago. Everything had been clean. No red flags, no open accounts I didn't recognize. I was proud of that. It had taken years of work and self-discipline to keep it that way. Credit to me was a form of self-respect. Something that told me I could rely on myself, even when no one else came through. But now, there were 3 new accounts, 2 store credit cards, both maxed out. One opened last year, the other 6 months ago. And a personal loan, $15,000, opened just 3 months earlier. I hadn't touched a single one of them. At first I thought it was fraud, like full-on identity theft. Some random cybercriminal using my name from across the country. But then I saw the billing address, my parents' house. I felt the heat rise up my chest like acid. I clicked through the loan documentation. There it was, my name, my social security number, my birth date, my signature. Except, I never signed that. Whoever forged it had done a decent job, but they missed the small things, the way I always made my A curl at the top, the slight angle of my M. It looked like a version of my name, but not mine. It was Alyssa's version. And the worst part? The bank had approved it, easily, because my credit history was spotless, because I looked trustworthy on paper. I pushed away from the desk and stood up, my legs stiff. I couldn't breathe through the fury. Not yet. So I did what I always did when my mind started spiraling. I cleaned, I scrubbed the counters, reorganized my spice drawer, folded laundry that didn't need folding. Somewhere in the rhythm of it all, my thoughts started to land. This wasn't just a one-time betrayal. It wasn't just the house fund. My sister had been using me, for years, my identity, my silence, my willingness to assume the best in people who'd already proven they didn't deserve it. And if she had done it once, twice, 3 times, I needed to know the whole picture. So I drove to the bank the next morning, not the one where the down payment account was held, but a smaller local branch, the one my parents always used, the one I hadn't stepped foot into since college. I requested to speak to a manager. He was polite, middle-aged, balding, with a gold wedding band and a nervous laugh. I told him I was following up on some suspicious loans that were allegedly opened under my name, and I'd like to see the original signed applications. He nodded and tapped on his keyboard. Let's see. Yes, we do have them on file. He left and returned with a thick folder. I opened it, scanning. There it was. My name, my details, my signature. But this time there was something else. A witness signature. Dad's. The line said, "Witnessed by William R. Connors." He had stood there and signed off, legally confirming that I was the one who opened the account. He knew. He had looked a bank employee in the eye and vouched for the lie. I sat very still. The manager was watching me, his expression shifting. "Is everything okay?" he asked. I looked up. My smile was tight. "Actually, this clears up a lot. Thank you." That night, I didn't call them. I didn't storm over. I didn't demand an explanation. I just sat on the floor of my apartment. The documents spread out around me like broken glass. The thing is, I kept thinking about this memory I hadn't thought of in years. I was maybe 9. Alyssa and I were playing outside. She tripped me, on purpose, and I scraped my hands and knees on the concrete. I ran inside crying, blood running down my palms. My mom cleaned me up with a damp towel, then said, "Be more careful next time. She didn't mean it." Alyssa never said sorry. Instead, later that night, she asked if she could borrow the new sketchbook I'd just bought with my allowance. I gave it to her. She ripped out the first page, wrote her name across the front, and then told our cousins it was hers. That was the first time I disappeared. Not literally, but something in me started learning how to shrink, how to stay quiet, how to take up less space so other people could stretch out into mine. Now, years later, I wasn't a kid with skinned knees. I was a woman with a bank file full of fraud, and a family who'd rather erase me than respect me. I took a breath and opened a new folder on my desktop. I named it Evidence. One by one, I uploaded everything: screenshots, documents, signatures, statements. Then I reached out to someone I hadn't spoken to in a long time. Her name was Julia. She used to work as a CPA for one of the nonprofits I volunteered at. We'd lost touch, but I remembered how sharp she was, how precise. I emailed her a summary, short, professional. I believe I'm the victim of familial identity fraud. I have evidence involving multiple loans, forged signatures, and witness confirmation by a direct relative. I need help building a timeline and understanding my legal options. Her reply came within the hour. Let's talk. This isn't just financial, it's criminal. Have you ever realized someone's been borrowing your name longer than your clothes? I met Julia in a quiet corner of a coffee shop that smelled like burnt espresso and almond milk. She looked exactly the same. Sharp blazer, sharp eyes, sharper mind. The kind of woman who always seems one step ahead of whatever mess you've brought to her doorstep. She pulled out her laptop, motioned for me to slide over my folder. I did. She glanced at the documents like she'd seen 100 of them before. But then her fingers paused. "This one," she said, tapping her nail against the witness signature. "You said your dad signed it?" I nodded. Her lips tightened. "Because this isn't the first time he's done it." "What do you mean?" She turned the screen toward me. "I ran your name through the federal credit check system, but I also checked a few related party filings, ones where your social security number appears but not your signature." I stared at the list. 3 more accounts. One of them was a co-signer document for a business lease, a lease I'd never heard of. She clicked it open. The business name? Alyssa Media Collective, LLC. I blinked. "What is that?" "It looks like a shell entity. Not really operational, but someone used it to lease office space in downtown Walnut Grove. They used your credit as the base for approval. Signed off by a guarantor, William R. Connors. That's my dad." Julia looked at me carefully. "They've been doing this for at least 2 years, possibly more. And here's the thing, Naomi. If that business defaults on anything, the collectors won't call them, they'll call you." I felt the world tilt, not violently, but in that slow, collapsing way, like a building you didn't know had been condemned until the roof gave in. Later that night, I drove out to the edge of town where the office was supposed to be. A strip of buildings lined a quiet boulevard, most of them closed, some with dusty "For Lease" signs. One door still had a logo stuck to the glass, Alyssa Media Collective. The lights were off, but I could see furniture inside. A desk, 2 chairs, a whiteboard filled with scribbles, bullet points, maybe content strategy, maybe lies. And sitting on that desk, clear as day, was a framed photo of Alyssa, smiling, with a fake Emmy prop tucked under her arm like she'd already won. I knocked anyway. No one answered. As I turned to walk away, my phone buzzed. "Mom." I didn't pick up, but then she texted, "Please don't make this bigger than it is." I didn't sleep. Again. So I did something I hadn't done in a long time. I went back to the house. The house I grew up in. The house where silence was a language and discomfort was wallpaper. The porch light was still the same flickering bulb it had always been. My dad opened the door like I was a stranger who might be delivering a package. "Naomi," he said, voice low. "Didn't expect to see you tonight." I stepped in. No hug, no offer of tea. "Can we talk?" I asked. "Privately." He glanced at the stairs. Alyssa's voice floated down. "Is that her? Tell her I'm not in the mood." I clenched my jaw. "Downstairs is fine." He sat on the couch. Same one I used to nap on after school. I didn't sit. I pulled out my copy of the lease, the one with his signature. He looked at it, then at me. "You went digging," he said flatly. "I found a lease agreement for a business that doesn't exist, using my credit, my name, and your signature." A long pause. "You didn't tell me because I knew you'd react like this." "Like what?" "Like someone who just realized her own father was willing to screw her over so his favorite child could play pretend CEO?" His jaw tightened. "Watch your tone." "No," I said. "You watch mine, because this is the last time I use it with you." He didn't deny it. Not once. Instead, he tried to twist it into logic. "Your sister needed help getting started. This was a stepping stone, and your credit was strong enough to support it. She couldn't do it without you. She didn't even ask. She would have, but you always say no. That's called a boundary. She's family. And I'm not?" That one he couldn't answer, so I gave him another silence to fill. "She's not malicious," he finally said. "She just thinks bigger than you." I nodded once. "You're right." "What?" "She does think bigger. She thinks big enough to assume no one will ever hold her accountable. And you helped build that belief." His face went pale. "Naomi, please, you don't have to escalate this." But I was already walking toward the door. Back at my apartment, I opened the email draft Julia and I had been building. It was a formal notification of intent to report identity misuse to the credit bureaus, the IRS, and the FTC. I had everything I needed, documented, signed, filed. I hovered over the send button, and then I hit it. Not out of revenge, but because some bridges don't need burning. Some you light yourself, just to see clearly who never tried to cross them. Have you ever had to fact-check your own family's love? There's something uniquely disorienting about realizing your mother doesn't just excuse the damage. You start to suspect she's been helping cause it. That's where I was. Not angry exactly. That had passed. Not numb either. That was earlier. What I felt now was focus. The kind of clean, precise energy that comes after mourning something you've finally accepted is gone. I was going to talk to her. Not to argue. Not to plead. Just to see if she'd finally admit it. I went over on a Saturday morning. She was making banana bread. It was still warm in the air, that soft scent of something sweet layered over something rotting. The perfect metaphor. She didn't look surprised when I walked in. Didn't even blink. "I figured you'd show up," she said, slicing the loaf. I leaned against the counter. "You always bake when you're nervous?" "I always bake when I need a minute to think," she replied, placing the slices onto a tray. "Would you like one?" "No." She set down the knife. "Then don't stand there like you want to be fed." I looked at her. Really looked. The same woman who used to clip bows in my hair and correct my posture at dinner, who taught me how to hold a teacup, but never taught me how to say no without guilt. "Did you know about the business lease?" I asked. Her hand twitched. "I'm assuming yes," I continued, "because you always say Dad does what you tell him, and he signed the papers." She was quiet for a beat. Then, "You're being dramatic again." "I'm being legal. There's a difference." She turned her back to me and walked to the sink, washed her hands slowly, deliberately. "I knew about the business," she said. "I didn't know the full arrangement." I raised an eyebrow. "So you didn't know it was under my name?" She didn't answer. "Mom," she turned, drying her hands on a towel. "I knew it was the only way she'd get approved." I stepped closer. "So you used me." "She needed a chance, Naomi. One chance." I scoffed. "She's had dozens, and somehow I always end up holding the receipt." She stared at me, hard. "You've always been fine, responsible, quiet. You don't fall apart the way she does." "She gets rewarded for falling apart. I get punished for holding it together." Something flickered across her face. Not guilt, more like irritation. "You're doing this again," she said, "turning everything into a personal attack. You want me to say you're right? Fine, you're right, she messed up. But do you really think this is some grand betrayal?" "No," I said calmly. "I think this is a pattern." I pulled out the folder from my bag. Not the legal documents, just one thing. A printed copy of a school report from Alyssa's second year of college. She recognized it instantly. "You remember this?" I asked. "She was caught plagiarizing. The university was going to suspend her, but the letter never went through because someone intercepted it." Her lips thinned. She was overwhelmed. She didn't mean to cheat. "She copied an entire research paper off JSTOR." She panicked. "And you went to the dean behind my back," I said. "You told him she had a medical condition and needed accommodations. You lied." Her hands curled around the edge of the counter. "I did what any mother would do." "No. You did what a mother does when she has one daughter she's trying to protect and one she's willing to use as a buffer." She didn't respond. She didn't deny it. She just stared. I pressed forward. "You covered for her in school. You covered for her with Dad. You're covering for her now. But what happens when this blows back? When creditors come to me? When the IRS starts asking questions? You're overreacting." "No, I'm responding. You're just not used to that." I pulled a second envelope from my bag. "This," I said, "is a summary of all the fraudulent accounts opened in my name. I've filed identity theft claims. Julia helped. We're cooperating with the authorities, which means at some point they're going to call you. And when they do, don't lie." Her face went pale. "I didn't sign anything," she whispered. "Neither did I," said, turning for the door. "And yet here we are." I didn't go straight home. I drove. It's strange what memories surface in moments like that. I thought about the summer before Alyssa left for college. I was working part-time at the library, saving up for a second-hand laptop. She had crashed hers the week before move-in. Our parents told me, not asked, that they were giving her the one I'd saved for. She needs it more than you right now, Mom had said, and I let it happen, because I believed that if I kept giving, one day they'd finally see me. But people don't see what they expect to always be there. You don't notice the chair you always sit in, until it's gone. When I got home, Julia had emailed again. Got confirmation. One of the forged accounts used your SSN and triggered a federal flag. That means if we don't report it, you could be liable. But if we proceed, they'll likely open an inquiry into the co-signer as well. I assume that's your father? I replied immediately. Yes, and I'm ready for that. Then I sent a separate email to my landlord, one I hadn't planned to send so soon. I told her I'd be moving out by the end of the lease. I didn't have another place yet, but I was going to buy. For real this time. With money I earned, protected by paperwork, I signed. Only me. Because I wasn't just severing ties. I was reclaiming space. Not just physical, emotional, legal, real. Ever wonder what your parents would protect if they had to choose between fairness and their favorite? It happened on a Thursday, just after 7 p.m., when the sun was hanging low enough to paint everything in that honey-colored light that makes you believe, for half a second, the world could still be kind. There was a knock at my door. 3 short taps, familiar, not urgent, not uncertain, the kind of knock that assumes you'll open out of obligation. I did. Alyssa stood there, framed like a portrait she'd posed for too long. Her hair was swept back, like always, chic but rehearsed. Her lipstick matched her heels, blood wine red. In her hand, a designer purse I used to know the price of. "Can I come in?" she asked, already crossing the threshold. I didn't stop her, but I didn't move to make room either. She walked straight to the middle of the living room and turned slowly, looking around. "This place is cute," she said. "Minimalist, but intentionally sad." I raised an eyebrow. "Did you come here to rate my apartment or to lie to my face again?" She sighed, pulling off her coat like she was settling into a role. "I came to talk. Like grown-ups. Before you make this uglier than it needs to be." That was her move, always wrapping a threat in a silk scarf. I crossed my arms. "You've already drained my savings, wrecked my credit, and dragged my name into a federal investigation. You think I'm worried about ugly now?" I didn't mean for it to get this far. But it did. She looked away toward the window, like the answer might be in the trees or the sky or anywhere but here. Then she dropped the act. "You really filed it?" she asked, turning back to me. "The claim, with the IRS, with the feds." "I did." She ran a hand through her hair, and for the first time, I saw something crack in her face. Not guilt, not fear, calculation. "They'll investigate Dad," she said flatly. "You know that, right? He co-signed." "I know." "And Mom. If they subpoena her emails, her call logs." She made her choices. She narrowed her eyes. "So you're okay burning everything down?" "No," I said. "But I'm done being the fireproof floor they stomp on while they light the match." She laughed, short, bitter. "You think this makes you brave? Filing paperwork like some perfect victim? You've always been so good at looking clean while the rest of us get dirty doing what it takes. You stole from me. I borrowed from someone who didn't need it. That wasn't your call to make. It wasn't even about you," she snapped. Her voice echoed a little in the room, bouncing off the hardwood floors and the walls I hadn't bothered to decorate yet. I let the silence stretch. "It was never about you," she repeated, softer now. "You were just there, always so stable. You think that's a virtue? It's a shield, a weapon. You used it to make the rest of us look weak." I shook my head. "No, you made yourself look weak. I just refused to collapse for you." She looked like she might cry. For a second, I almost believed it. But then I remembered every time she'd used those same eyes to get out of parking tickets, skipped rent with roommates, told a sob story at a networking event to land a brand deal. It was never real. "I'm not going to jail for this," she said. "You know that, right? That's up to the people reading the files. You could fix it. I am fixing it. For me." She stepped closer. "If I go down, they go with me. You're not just burning me. You're torching Mom and Dad. I met her eyes. Maybe they should have thought of that before they helped you dig the hole. After she left, I stood for a long time at the door she'd slammed behind her. The air felt heavier, like something had been pushed out and refused to come back in. I went to my desk, opened the folder Julia and I shared on the cloud, updated the timeline. Entry 41. In-person visit by Alyssa. Implied retaliation. Verbal pressure to withdraw claim. No apology, no accountability. Then I added one more line, the kind that doesn't show up in lawsuits but sticks with you longer than any ruling. She thinks if it wasn't about me, it wasn't my right to be hurt. A few days later, I got a call from Julia. There's been movement, she said. They've opened a joint review. Alyssa and your father, because of the business lease and the overlapping activity. Criminal? Potentially. And you're officially on record as a cooperating witness. They may ask you to testify. I was quiet. I can walk you through it, she said gently. No, I replied. I want to do it. That night, I sat at my desk with an old manila folder spread open in front of me, the one that used to hold my dreams. Floor plans, realtor emails, photos of kitchens I once imagined dancing in. 100 little hopes pinned to a future someone else thought they had the right to pause. But not anymore. So I started over. From zero. First, I mapped out the timeline to repair my credit. I finalized the fraud claim with the IRS and locked down my identity with all 3 bureaus. It was tedious, exhausting, but necessary. Next, I wrote down what came after. Get pre-approved. Find a new agent. Start touring listings again, not with fear, but with clarity. It wasn't about revenge anymore. It was about reclamation. I wasn't here to punish them. I was finally ready to choose myself. For the first time in years, my future felt like mine again. Not borrowed, not negotiated, mine. They didn't invite me. That's how I knew something was happening. It was my cousin Mia who tipped me off. Just a casual text. Good luck today. Hope the family meeting goes okay. I stared at the message for a solid minute. There was no family meeting, not that I knew of. But there was one happening, at my parents' house, with Alyssa, with their lawyer, and without me. I didn't ask permission. I didn't knock. I drove straight there. The street looked the same as always. Same cracked sidewalk. Same wind chimes that sounded like they were trying to apologize for something they didn't break. I walked in through the front door, like it was still mine to walk through. They were all seated at the dining room table. Dad at the head, with his folded hands and his reasonable expression. Mom with a legal pad and a fresh manicure. Alyssa in soft beige and a silk scarf, playing the composed version of herself. And Mr. Crane, the family lawyer, a man who always smiled too hard, like he was trying to earn his paycheck in teeth. Conversation stopped the moment they saw me. Oh, my mother said flatly, you're early. I pulled out the chair at the end of the table and sat down. I wasn't invited, I said, but I figured I'd come anyway, since we're all deciding things that affect me. Mr. Crane cleared his throat. Naomi, this was just a preliminary chat, nothing formal. Then why is there a draft settlement agreement on the table? No one answered. I looked at the paper. A familiar font. Legal language dressed in soft tones. They were preparing to propose an amicable resolution. The gist? I'd agree to retract my fraud claim. In return, they'd cover the debt quietly, issue a statement that it was a misunderstanding, and move forward as a family. No blame, no consequence, no truth. But the real kicker was the clause at the bottom, one that stated I'd suffered mental distress that may have impaired financial clarity, and that the parties involved express concern for my well-being and recommend professional review. They were laying the groundwork to frame me as unstable. I looked up at them. These people I'd once called family. You're gaslighting me with paperwork now? Mom blinked. It's not like that, sweetie. We're just trying to find a path forward that doesn't ruin anyone. You mean one that doesn't ruin her, I said, jerking my head toward Alyssa. Or you. Dad opened his mouth, but I held up a hand. I already know what this is. You're trying to rewrite the story before the investigators finish reading mine. Mr. Crane shifted uncomfortably. No one's accusing anyone of anything. I am, I said, and I've already submitted additional evidence, including emails and voice recordings. They all went still. Alyssa's eyes darted toward my mom. My mom stared at me like she just realized I was speaking a language she no longer understood. "You recorded us?" my father asked. "No," I said. "I protected myself. You just didn't notice." I stood. "I'm not signing anything. Not today. Not ever. And the next time you want to erase me, maybe use a pencil. It hurts less when I write myself back in." Then I walked out. I didn't run. I didn't slam the door. But I also didn't look back. It took 6 weeks. 6 weeks of silence, emails, follow-ups, legal handoffs, and heavy conversations with government agents who spoke in clipped phrases and timeline charts. 6 weeks until I got a letter in the mail, not from my family, from the bank. Fraud claim validated. All debts cleared from my record, credit fully restored. My name, my real one, untangled from the mess they tried to make of it. I stood there holding the letter like it was warm, like it had a heartbeat. Later that day, I met with a new realtor. We drove to a house tucked at the edge of town, with a tiny porch and lavender bushes in front. Nothing grand, but enough. Quiet, safe. I walked through the rooms like they were chapters waiting to be written. The living room caught light just right. The kitchen had a window above the sink. There was one bedroom, one bath, and a small room off the hall that I would turn into a library, or maybe a studio. I made an offer that same afternoon. A clean offer. All cash, all mine. Moving day came quietly. No one helped. I didn't ask. I unpacked slowly. Placed my books on the shelf one by one. Laid out plates and cabinets I didn't need permission to touch. Hung a single frame above the entry table. A photo I took on a solo trip years ago, before everything cracked. A mountain trail, and no one else in the shot. That night I brewed tea, barefoot on the cool tile. I lit a candle, opened the window, and stood in the doorway of the house that no one else had signed for, that no one else had claimed, that no one else had tried to steal. There was no apology, no dramatic confrontation, just me and freedom. And peace that didn't need proving. Some people think betrayal only hurts when it's loud. But the truth is, the deepest wounds come in silence, from people who were supposed to protect you, using words like love and family to justify their harm. If you've ever felt overlooked, used, or erased by your own blood, let me tell you this. You're not broken. You're not crazy. You're not alone. Choosing yourself isn't selfish. It's survival. And healing isn't loud either. Sometimes it's quiet, steady, and legal. Sometimes it's signing your name on your future and no one else's. What about you? Have you ever had to walk away from the people who should have loved you the most? What did that feel like? If this story touched something in you, tell me in the comments where you're watching from, or share why this resonated. And if it didn't, tell me why. I want this space to be honest. And hey, if you found meaning here, consider subscribing to the channel so you won't miss the next story. We're building something real, one truth at a time.